past school year. She's like, why did so-and-so's mom come, and her mom came, and his mom came, and where were you? And I'm like, oh, no.
So what did you do? Did you read?
So this is the funny part. I don't know if I'll be welcomed back, because my part yesterday, as I hit my mic, sorry, was to kind of test the kids. She gave me these worksheets, and she's like, okay, you're just going to call one kid up and then follow the instructions. Very simple. 3 boxes. You draw a triangle, a square, and a circle. And then, like, the first kid that came up, I was reading the words upside down because it was facing the kid.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, put your finger on the star, and then you got to draw a star in the first box. After she did the full sheet, I was like, she was supposed to draw a circle. So then I had to pull her sheet aside, and I, like, afterwards told the teacher, I was like, listen, this kid, very smart. This was my fault. I told her to draw a star.
A star? And was she able to do that?
Yeah.
That's impressive.
And the instructions clearly state, in the first box, you're going to draw a circle. I can't even
actually,
handle.
I sympathize because I've done that whole thing where you're sitting in front of the class and you're having to read upside down and inverted, so you get some grace.
It said, like, put your finger on the star, and then the next line was draw a circle in the first box. I was like, I can't even handle this. This teacher's going to literally kill me.
Hey.
She's got her tight ship, and I'm like, draw a star. And this is like to, you know, see where they're at developmentally, and I failed.
That's a lot of responsibility for the volunteer parents. You know?
I thought so.
You're actually testing them.
You know?
The extent of my volunteer work in the class is basically choosing a book.
Oh, you read.
And I always choose Harold and the Purple Crayon. I don't know if you've ever read that one.
That's a very
classic.
cute book.
It's so cute. It's basically about a kid who has a magic crayon, and he can create his own reality with the crayon. It's very imaginative. So yeah, that was the extent of mine. But yes, reading upside down is always a challenge.
Okay. Well, I'm going to do more I'm going to try, if they let me back, to do more volunteering, and I'm sure I'll have many stories to share.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm always ears for that.
Yeah.
We have a bunch to get to here in the next hour, Caitlin. You know, I'm fascinated by the human psyche. We're always talking about dreams and everything, and this is a topic I'm actually going to be very entertained.
Did you book this?
I did not book this. This is a doctor who is actually, and this is serious stuff that they're doing research for general anxiety. Generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD. This is basically treatment-resistant anxiety.
Yeah.
And we've talked about psilocybin, which is the compound found in psychedelic mushrooms that is being used to treat certain forms of anxiety. And today we're going to talk about LSD.
And we're also going to be talking about Twilight. Were you a fan of Twilight?
Run me through that, because I never, Maggie, my wife, was obsessed with all these vampire drama, diaries, whatever, and I missed the boat on Twilight. I think I was too old.
You probably were. I think I was in college when Twilight came out.
Okay, so there's something called TwiHard?
TwiHard.
Okay.
So it's a musical that you never knew you needed in your life by Entertaining Chicago. It's called TwiHard, and it reimagines the beloved Twilight saga with irreverent, there we go, irreverent humor and show-stopping original music. So we're going to be joined by a cast member. His name is Trey, fresh from his appearance on Netflix Squid Game, The Challenge, and Battle Camp.
Oh, very nice.
So the Twilight, I'm not sure too much about the TwiHard. I haven't heard about it, but I did like Twilight in my, you know, I think it'll be very popular.
At the Apollo Theater, not the New York famous Apollo Theater. There's an Apollo Theater here in Chicago too. I believe it's on North Lincoln Avenue. So that, I'm always curious about the stuff that goes on there. Also, there's a new platform. It's a gaming platform that we're going to be talking about with, and it's specifically designed to increase STEM literacy among the deaf community and the hard of hearing community. And so we are going to hear from some of the developers of that. I'm actually curious to see the games involved. One of my uncles is hard of hearing, and so I've been around him my entire life, and I've seen kind of the learning curve. And he actually did relatively recently get what's called a cochlear implant.
Okay.
So he can actually hear. It's a different kind of hearing, but he can hear through the implant now. But this is of particular interest to me because I've just been around it my whole life. It's my mom's brother. So, so that and much more coming up in the next hour. We are going to start, though, with this LSD as a treatment for general generalized anxiety disorder, because a new study has found that a single dose of LSD can, in some patients, ease anxiety and also depression, not just temporarily, but for months.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
depression, anxiety, it's a serious
oh my gosh,
issue.
It is
it's
so
debilitating.
I'm very open about the fact that I do live with anxiety myself.
Yeah.
I try to talk about it fairly openly, but that, yeah, it's kind of a, we ponces, we run anxious. We don't, I've kind of found that people tend to, if they do suffer from either, it's usually an either or. People can lean to have the SADs or the anxious stuff, and yeah, that's kind of my thing. So.
Like last week we were talking about postpartum.
Yes.
I had both. I had the high energy anxiety, and I also got the depression where it's very low and dark and all of those things. So I understand we both have dealt with these things. Why it is so serious to the point where some folks may not have medication that helps them.
Right.
And so we're looking for other solutions to this problem because mental health is literally everything.
It is. And it's actually, in terms of the context of it in the wider, medical field, it is kind of the, I don't want to say the Wild West, but the last frontier here. We're just at the beginning of research into these treatments. There's been talk therapy has been around for a long time. Different compounds like lithium, for example, has been used to treat bipolar. We've had these SSRIs, I believe they're called. There's serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and drugs like Prozac, drugs like Lexapro, and Xanax, absolutely, Zoloft, all these things that have made their way into the mainstream. But these compounds that kind of fell out of favor after the 70s, the 60s and 70s, LSD, and then recently
psilocybin.
Yeah, psilocybin. And we've also talked on this show about what's the drug that starts with a K that Matthew Perry? Ketamine. We've talked about that too. So this is kind of a continuation of that discussion. And joining us now to weigh in is Josh Eloge.
Hello.
Did I get your last name correct? I know
is it Josh Eloge?
Eloge?
Elo, yeah, it's such a weird one. I know. No, Elo, the G silent. Yeah, good to see you guys.
The G is silent, so it's like Craig Elo.
Yeah.
Okay, you were with the Rush University, the Women's Board Depression Treatment Research Center. Did I get all that right?
Nailed it. Nailed it. Yeah.
All right, very good. Let's start off kind of general, and then we can kind of zoom in tightly. This study of people with moderate to severe anxiety, can you describe that? What is meant by moderate to severe?
Yeah. So anxiety is a normal thing in life, right? We all experience it at some point. Maybe before a big test, maybe we're worried about somebody who's in the hospital who's not feeling well, maybe before coming on to talk with you really nice folks. We all feel a little bit of anxiety at different times. What this study was looking at is what you were talking about, Anthony, a specific disorder that we have when the anxiety is too much and it's difficult to control. It's called generalized anxiety disorder because the anxiety hits multiple domains of life, maybe worrying about family, career, school, several different things, and it's hard, and it lasts for about 6 months, so it's not kind of a short-lived thing, and it's really hard to control the worrying. Plus, folks with this diagnosis and in this study also had anxiety showing up by feeling keyed up and tense, with like muscle tension, with having difficulty concentrating, with troubles with sleep. And so it wasn't just worried thoughts. It was also showing up in some of these other ways.
I feel like when I get stressed or if I have anxiety, which it's actually happened this morning, my eyelid twitches.
Oh, really?
Is that, we don't have to dive into that, but I do feel like that's another sign of anxiety. So your study, you're talking about psychedelics, LSD. How could this be helpful to someone with anxiety? Have you found it to be helpful? And what are you doing in these studies?
So, Anthony, you're kind of nailing it. We are on a new area that's really exciting in psychiatry. We have had, like you mentioned, therapy. We've had many of our medications that have been helpful for many, but sadly not for everyone. And so, in the last several years, psychedelics, psilocybin, MDMA, a dissociative called ketamine that you were mentioning, and LSD, they've all started getting a little bit of traction. And now, as we've developed as a field and kind of developed some of the ways to look at these in a more scientific, kind of standardized way, we've found that some of our different disorders, depression or trauma or now anxiety, might be responsive to some of these treatments. We're in a tricky time because, as Anthony, you were mentioning, these are all Schedule 1 drugs, which means that the federal government has said, like, hey, these are too unsafe, it's too scary, we don't know enough about them for us to be able to use them, like prescribe them in routine practice. So what we really are seeing now is out of the research, the clinical trials. And that's what this study was looking at LSD specifically for generalized anxiety disorder. And they looked at 4 different strengths relative to placebo. And they found that the 2 higher strengths, 100 nanograms and 200 nanograms, those were both effective and separated relative to placebo. And what's really cool is that they checked at 1 week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. And at every time point, the group that got those 2 doses, they were much improved in their anxiety and depression compared to the people who got the lower doses or who got placebo.
That's unbelievable. Now, those results are actually stunning. Were the recipients of the higher doses, was this coupled with talk therapy, or did they just get this higher dose and they were on their way?
They had some prep sessions with call them a session monitor. Oftentimes these are people who are therapists who have experience with psychedelics, to kind of get an understanding of what you might experience when we're going through this study, to make sure that you feel comfortable with it. We have some strategies to do something if it feels pretty intense and difficult. So there's one session to kind of set those expectations and strategies. And then those same session monitors, there was 2 of them, would stay in the session, and the session lasted 8 hours or so, would stay in the room with these folks to provide support, to kind of guide them as they were going through this. So it wasn't and then there were also psychiatrists and medical professionals available if there were some side effects that were not expected. And so there's a pretty contained, pretty supervised setting. And this is pretty common. There's definitely some changes relative to the different studies, but in general, this is how most of these studies are set up, where you're working with somebody who's present throughout, who can guide, who can support if things get a little bit difficult.
Which I want to dive into that. So you said side effects that weren't expected. What kind of side effects are you talking about?
Well, it's actually interesting that many of these new treatments, they don't seem to, we're in the early days, but they don't seem to have longer potential for side effects like some of our medications can have, in terms of maybe weight gain or some sexual dysfunction. Because there's such a brief treatment, it's like a 1-day dose, the side effects are pretty much limited to the time that you're in the midst of the dosing. And so when we're looking at, can we trust this data, like in a study like this, we're looking at, was there more of an effect with higher doses? And partly, was there an increase in side effects with these different doses? And for this study, yes, there was more effect at these higher doses, like I had mentioned, but there also was a higher risk of side effects like visual illusions. So if you like move your head around, you can kind of see trails of some of the borders that you might be looking at, as well as hallucinations. These all were during the session and didn't persist after, but the risk actually, especially at those higher doses, was the vast majority. In fact, the highest dose, 100% of the people had this specific side effect.
Now, why is it termed a side effect? Because I would think that that is part of the experience itself. I wonder, is it a side effect, or are those visuals that you say people are getting, could that have to do with the healing effect that you guys are actually documenting?
Such a good question, and I think you're right on. Is this really necessarily bad? If you're not prepared for it, if it becomes kind of uncomfortable and scary, like obviously that's not something that we would really want, but is it necessary? Is it kind of part of the healing process? And that's something that I think that we still need to look into to get a better understanding of it. You know, we have an idea of how these medicines might work in terms of like the mechanism that we've noticed in animal models and some other ways. But do you need to have some of these very strong subjective experiences like a hallucination or kind of altered status, altered kind of way of thinking about things, perceptions? Is that part of why some of the typical treatments like therapy or medications like SSRIs, like you had mentioned, haven't been effective enough? We really need to kind of change the way that we're thinking about this.
So we keep showing this image that's on your screen right now. Can you speak to those people who are at home, who have severe anxiety and are thinking, I might be able to get my hands on some LSD? This is not something that we should be doing without a medical professional present, right?
Well, yeah, and frankly, like we're in the spot where legally it's not legal to use these sorts of treatments. And so in the context of a clinical trial, which is what this study was, you know, going before an institutional review board and getting that approval and, you know, making sure patients have a good idea of what might come up, that's really at this point, the way to be able to get access to some of these treatments. Though, you know, these types of treatments are part of what our group is doing here at Rush, specifically with psilocybin, to set up the opportunity to potentially get these approved and maybe become legal and then become options for treatment for people who are not getting the response to our typical treatments. So yeah, we're a little ahead in terms of talking about this. This is not necessarily available outside of a clinical research setting, but this is an area that we're actively developing, and hopefully we'll be able to bring this to, you know, assuming that the research is positive and the side effects are tolerable, that this could potentially be, you know, something that comes to markets soon.
Could we dive into the different, psychedelics? What is LSD made from?
It's actually synthesized in a lab. It's a really kind of interesting 1938, I think, this guy developed it in the lab and accidentally had contact with it. And then he was riding his bike home and everything kind of, the borders of things and the colors were very vivid. And then he kind of realized, like, oh, I accidentally developed something that's mind altering. But it's not a naturally occurring substance. It's something that's made in the lab.
Okay, got it. We did, Dr. Elo, a story some time ago about psilocybin as a treatment for alcohol addiction, and similar result where the person who we profiled, who did a clinical trial, I think he did 3 doses over the course of a year, and it was followed up with talk therapy, and he was careful to stress that the talk therapy element of the treatment was key in his recovery because he hadn't touched a drink in some years after doing the clinical trial. Is this treatment, after these participants are administered these doses of LSD, is it followed up with a form of talk therapy?
So for this trial, in an effort to really try to isolate, like, what is this medicine? What is LSD doing? Can we trust that this is what's going on? They really try to limit therapy during the trial. About 16% of folks were still in therapy that they had started before the study, but you know, the idea is this wasn't effective enough. That's why we're coming into the study to try to get these symptoms under better control. But the vast majority ended up not going through therapy. Many of these people were on medications before they came in. They were taken off of their medications over time to taper off safely. Now, contrast that, and so in the effort to really kind of isolate what is the LSD doing, you know, you kind of have to make some decisions when you're developing your protocol about what you want to allow to happen. And so this was taking kind of that approach, trying to minimize what the therapy might kind of confound the results. Contrast that with what you're, I think, kind of getting at is these medicines have this change in your perspective. And for somebody who's been faithful in going to therapy for so long, could that change in perspective really help get folks maybe get unstuck or get an idea of how to approach this problem or this disorder in a slightly different way? And so the idea of being able to couple this with therapy to provide that support and to be able to kind of process and integrate some of those things that maybe came up during the dosing session, I think is such an important part of this. So in our psilocybin study, yes, we have some more of those prep sessions I was mentioning with a psychotherapist who is also there during the dosing session. And then there's visits after to sort of make meaning, to integrate what maybe came up during the dosing session. I think going forward, that's going to be an important part for us to be able to kind of get the most out of whatever these medicines are able to give us.
I know we're running out of time here, but one last question, because I know you are leading different studies at Rush. Can you give us a couple highlights of what you're working on right now?
Yeah, so part of why I'm excited to talk about this study is because these psychedelics, it's really fascinating. So we have I've been alluding to this study, a study for treatment-resistant depression, people who have not responded to a couple antidepressants in their current episode, and then going forward with psilocybin paired with a therapist. We also have another study that's also looking at psilocybin a little bit differently. This is you stay on medications, maybe they provided some benefit, also working with a therapist. So looking at it in slightly different populations, or where would we start thinking about psilocybin when this hopefully comes to market. We have another psychedelic coming in, and this one is, Anthony, to your point, back in the 60s and 70s, we had some really interesting data related to alcohol use disorder. We also had some really cool stuff about people who were having terminal illnesses and end-of-life kind of anxiety, like existential distress about that. And so we have a new study coming up very soon that's going to be looking at that population of folks who have some sort of terminal disorder, cancer, and are having what we call adjustment disorder. It's much like what we were talking about generalized anxiety disorder, kind of like this is a difficult situation, but your worry, how much it's affecting your mood and your anxiety is kind of too much, and it's inhibiting functioning. So that one's coming up. And then in a very different way, we have a couple studies looking at different ways that devices might be helpful for treatment-resistant depression and bipolar disorder. One is a vagus nerve stimulator for bipolar depression. That's really kind of an exciting different way to sort of get into, there's the vagus nerve is a nerve that runs down your neck and it goes up into the brain. And so if we can kind of modulate that, could that be effective to try to replicate some positive studies that we've had before? And then the last one, briefly, is a deep brain stimulator study that we're really excited about working with. And so deep brain stimulators are a device that's been used for Parkinson's and essential tremor for many years now and shown really great efficacy, finding exactly where in the brain to stimulate to help out in those disorders. And we found a very different but similar structure in the brain that's hyperactive in treatment-resistant depression. And so we're using this deep brain stimulator to try to focus the treatment specifically at that target. And some of the preliminary data has been really exciting. And so we're trying to bring more folks in to get better understanding of if this is a treatment for people who really just haven't responded to medications, to therapy, to these sorts of things. So yeah, many exciting new options coming up.
That is quite cool. You've got a lot of balls in the air right now, juggling a lot, but it's all exciting and it's like on the cutting edge. That's really great.
Very impressive.
Dr. Elo, Josh Elo, everybody, keep us posted on how these go.
Thank you guys for your candor about how common these disorders are, and for having me to come talk a little bit about this. I think there's lots of hope on the horizon, so thanks for letting me come on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fascinating to hear from him on all those things you asked about. He has like 5 studies going concurrently. He mentioned leveraging technology to treat some of these disorders. We are going to be speaking coming up with a group that is doing a similar thing, only this has to do not with treatment-resistant depression or anxiety, but for those who are deaf or hard of hearing, bolstering their ability to learn the STEM fields. Were you a math person or more of a language arts type person?
I have a math minor.
You have a math minor? Okay, meteorology. You're a scientist.
Because I had to, didn't choose to.
Okay, it was part of your...
Meteorology is a lot of math.
Okay.
People don't really.
I always leaned, it's odd that I'm a journalist now because I always did better in math.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if it was that I didn't...
You have the brain creativity side. Isn't that like a left and right side brain thing?
I know. You would think, but I always...
It's kind of fun, isn't it? It's like problem solving.
Totally. I always looked at it as like a little game.
A game. It's a game.
It felt to me, solving math problems were the same it stimulated the same part of my brain as doing like a crossword.
Oh, for sure. And then you get to the end and you're like, bam.
Yeah, exactly.
Did it. Dotted all the things and crossed all the things.
So coming up, a new platform working to increase STEM literacy to deaf and hard of hearing students. We will speak with this group when we come back with more Chicago Now after this.
For most
Welcome back. A new platform is working to increase STEM literacy to deaf and hard of hearing students. It's called ASL Aspire, and it uses games to teach STEM skills in American Sign Language. The lessons are created and delivered by deaf professionals in their respective areas of study. So joining us now are Mona Jawad, she's the Chief Executive Officer, ASL Aspire, and Aisha Kazi, she's the Chief Operating Officer at ASL Aspire. So what inspired the two of you to create this ASL Aspire program for STEM?
Yeah, so I started ASL Aspire because my brother was born with hearing loss from a disorder called MPS II, but that didn't make him lose any of his enthusiasm for education and learning. I wanted to make sure that education could be accessible for all people, including people like him. And Aisha joined me for the journey.
So you guys are kind of partners in crime here.
Absolutely.
By the way, I should mention we have Rachel right here, who is our interpreter, so that when this segment not only airs but is shared on social media, everybody in the deaf community, everyone in the hard of hearing community can understand exactly what we are talking about. So let's go over to you, Aisha. You're the COO of ASL Aspire. How are deaf and hard of hearing students learning now? And contrast that with how you hope they will learn via your product.
Yeah, so currently they're learning from traditional textbooks. So English is actually their second language, so they're learning at such a low rates of literacy. So an average high school deaf student is at a 4th grade literacy level, and if you hand them like a biology or chemistry textbook, they're not really understanding much, and they're much behind the standards. So what we're doing is we're creating an ASL curriculum. So fully deaf scientists create those videos, and then they get to learn through our platform.
Are you hoping to get this integrated into schools so they can be delivered to students across the nation?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are bringing it to as many schools, both public and deaf residential schools, as we can, because we know that teachers are just in so much in need of this support and are already putting so much of their hearts and souls into helping these kids. We just want to streamline the process for them.
Okay, can you dive in a little bit? Either of you can take this question, but how ASL Inspire actually works? What does the platform look like? How is it different than a standard textbook?
Yeah, so ASL Aspire uses lessons that are filmed by deaf scientists that have captions and voiceovers, so you can access it in any language that you're looking at. And those are embedded into different games that teachers can access. The teachers can track the students' progress and see how well they're doing at different vocabulary levels, literacy levels, and content levels aligned with next generation science standards.
So what grades are you looking at right now? What have you created these programs for?
So right now we're really focusing on middle school students because that's where students learn their science foundational knowledge. But we plan to expand that out to K through 12. What we found too is that right now our curriculum is made for middle school students, but because deaf students are so behind, a lot of our primary user base are high school students.
So the games, do they involve the curriculum that the students can hear normally are actually doing as well? Is it on top of those? Are they related to the material that is existing in that exact school?
Yeah, absolutely. So the games take the vocabulary that's necessary for the students to really access that curriculum, and they help pre-teach those words and the new signs that deaf scientists are coming out with for terminology that hasn't existed in the past 10, 20 years, right? Like terminology about computers, about engineering, all that.
There are literally new hand
new
motions.
signs. Yes,
new
yes.
hand motions for
Absolutely.
new words.
Yep.
'Cause we're always talking about, oh yeah, the
Yes.
word Riz is now in the Oxford Dictionary. Is there a sign? Rachel, can you, what is Riz?
R-I-Z-Z.
Okay.
Spelling it out. Got
Okay,
it.
we got to learn this in sign language. Too.
Yeah.
Yes.
What has the feedback been like for you guys? What have you heard from students?
Yeah, we've been really grateful to get a lot of feedback from both teachers and students telling us how necessary this is. We've worked with schools in St. Louis to kind of run a pilot on this, gather some data and see what's going on, and students love the games. Teachers feel that it decreases the workload for them because these teachers work so hard. They give everything to these kids, and we just want to make it a little bit easier for them.
What is the trend right now? Are there separate institutions, facilities, schools for the deaf and hard of hearing? And is this an effort to make sure that they're integrated with the rest of the student population? And is that important that they're integrated and not being taught separately?
Well, every student is going to be different and have different needs, so it depends on what the family wants and what's best for that kid. Our goal is really to make sure that these students, wherever they are, can access the language.
How has the funding been? Are you guys reaching out to different organizations?
Yeah, so right now we're fully bootstrapped. We have built our platform through research development money, and right now we're selling our product into schools like CPS. So we're really looking forward to continuing and just working off of that money.
So have you guys designed the game? I know you've designed the games yourselves?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then do you have folks like Rachel that are I don't know if you want to say performing them, but like giving the tests on camera?
Right,
Is that how
yeah.
it works?
So deaf scientists are the ones who do all of the ASL content for us. We have some really terrific, content leaders in their field who've joined us on our team, and we have a green screen studio in Washington, D.C., where they go and film the videos, and those get animated by a deaf animator because it's so important that, they're the ones who are giving the kids the content and acting as role models for the students.
So being a creator of a game, that's probably very difficult. Could you give us an example of maybe your more popular game? Like what is that like? Like how did you create this?
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, we have a big team, first of all, so it definitely wasn't, just the
got
two of
it.
us.
All right.
We have some really terrific designers, and one of my favorite ones is a maze runner game where the kids are running around the maze collecting little coins that every time you grab one, a multiple choice question pops up.
Oh.
And the kids can see the ASL video, match it with the English word, match it with icons, and start to really build that bilingual literacy.
Very, very cool. So what is next for you guys? What are your, maybe you could talk about some of your short-term goals before going into what you envision this being, 10 years down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now we're really looking on expanding it out to as many schools as we can get to, both in the Midwest region and then nationally. We also want to work with other schools. For example, we're working with one in Canada who has Quebec Sign Language, so trying to get this into different languages as well. Also one in Mexico and Mexican Sign Language, so trying to make sure that our product works, across the nations. And then, yeah, we hope that we can beat the standard. There isn't, you know, a standardized deaf curriculum, so if we can be, you know, the first out there and helping out these students, we'd love to.
I would love to know too, maybe there's a homeschool family or a family in a different state who doesn't have this option at their school. If they want to reach out to you to get more information, where should they go?
Yeah, they can go straight to our website at aslaspire.com, and parents, interpreters, anybody who could find this useful can access our resources.
All right, Mona, Aisha, and of course Rachel, thank you all so much for being here on Chicago Now. We wish you the very best of luck. Love what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
All right, yeah, it's our pleasure. All right, we are going to take a quick break, but we are going to switch gears entirely when we come back and talk about, we had a guest on Good Day Chicago earlier today from Block Club Chicago, who is basically like the local theater scene here in the city.
It's exploding. It's a good year.
Exactly. She called it an embarrassment of riches. There is so much live theater to see. So coming up, we are going to talk with Trey Plutnicki. He is one of the imaginations behind something called TwiHard, which is a parody of the whole Twilight saga. It is coming to the Apollo Theater on the north side of the city. We're going to talk with Trey when we come back. Stay with us.
So we're talking to Trey. This is Trey Plutnicki, and we're talking about Twilight, which I was a huge fan of Twilight when I was younger. Yeah, the musical that you never know you needed in your life by Entertaining Chicago, TwiHard. It's reimagined Twilight. It's the saga reimagined with irreverent humor, show-stopping original music, and this weekend, TwiHard, a Twilight musical parody, will welcome the return of its original cast members, like Trey. Wait, are you Edward in TwiHard?
No, I'm Jacob. I'm the guy that tries to kill. Yeah.
Okay,
you're the villain.
I'm the villain. Yeah.
Whoa.
Wait, and you were also in Netflix's Squid Game?
That's correct. Squid Game: The Challenge, the reality television show version, not the South Korean drama.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't watch that show.
You lived to tell the tale.
I mean, you know, it was a very, very popular one. So Trey's return is timed to National Twilighters Day, which Anthony was very excited about.
Yeah, I didn't know there was a whole holiday for Twilight people.
Yeah, you know, the fandom's crazy.
So is that when is National? Do we know when National Twilighters Day is?
I think it's on the 13th.
Okay.
The 12th or 13th. Don't.
Okay, you're not. Okay.
Be tied to the movie somehow, like maybe with them going to school or something, maybe them meeting.
Or the release of the first book or something, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so.
It's the 13th.
Right.
I was right the
13th.
first. Wow. Okay.
So you're going to host a special pre-show talkback at 6 p.m. and a special after show, huh? For this program.
Yeah.
So let's get into, first of all, TwiHard and how you got involved.
Yeah. So I've been doing like musical theater and regional theater for about 10 years now. I majored in musical theater in school. I worked with Otherworld Theater on a Star Wars parody play called The Trade Federation, which is like a hyper-political take on the Star Wars prequels. And Otherworld Theater also was producing their first musical later that year, and I was like, why not? Let's see what happens. And it's TwiHard, the Twilight musical parody.
That's awesome. So you were in the original cast, which means
right.
it's had subsequent casts.
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
So I was in the first production, and then there was another production later that year when that went up that I was not in, and this is my return in a brand new, bigger space that we have.
Okay, so seeing the word TwiHard, I'm thinking also Die Hard. Does it have anything to do with the Bruce Willis?
It has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with that.
Okay.
There's a joke in the show about that, though, because my dad also had the same
all the older people like me are like,
yeah.
This is a
Twilight.
mix between Die Hard and Twilight.
Okay, so this is the whole saga, huh? Yeah. So you're following it like movie by movie?
We have references to the entire saga in the play, but it follows story-wise and like beat for beat-wise, it follows the first book and the first movie.
Okay.
So like you don't have to watch Breaking Dawn Part 2 in order to understand TwiHard, the Twilight musical parody. You really should probably just watch the movie right before you go.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you do recommend a little primer. You can't just go in totally blind.
Have you seen Twilight?
I have not actually.
So if you want to go see TwiHard, watch the first.
Watch the first one
and you're in.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the original run of the show, was it at the Apollo?
No, the original run was at Otherworld Space in Wrigleyville.
Oh, in Wrigleyville, okay.
So this is our first time at the Apollo. The former space we were in was like 60 seats, and now we're in the Apollo, and it's like 450.
It's a great venue.
Yeah.
I've seen plays there. It's awesome. What? Let me ask you this. I mean, I'm generally familiar with like I know all the actors, like the Kristen Stewart and the Taylor Lautner.
Robert Pattinson.
Robert Pattinson,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yes.
So I mean, I know the visuals from it. What makes Twilight such fertile ground for a musical parody, would you say?
I think, and bear with me on this,
Sure.
it's the fan fiction and the fans. There is like this intense fandom surrounding Twilight in a way that doesn't really follow the Harry Potters or the Hunger Games. There's like, what is it, a festival in Forks, Washington, where the book takes place, and tons of people come and show up
there. They make the pilgrimage.
Exactly, precisely, exactly that.
Oh, that is wild. I had no clue.
There's like this huge fandom surrounding the books and the movies that makes it ripe for musical parody.
And you said musical parodies. So there's going to be new songs that were written about Twilight.
Yeah, it's an original musical, completely original.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did that process go?
I think it was written over the course of like a year. I mean, when we did those original 2 productions at Otherworld Theater, we did rewrites, and we were like working on it like it was a new work, because it was. But we have a composer, his name is Brian Rasmussen. He wrote the entire score.
Wow.
It's almost completely sung through. There's a few scenes here and there, but it's music almost the entire way through.
Wait, so you have a voice on you, huh?
We dabble.
We dabble.
Yeah. I'm mainly a tap dancer. I do tap dance on the show. So.
Oh, you do tap dance?
Yeah, I do tap dance.
So tell us a little bit about your own background, Trey. So you said you majored in musical theater.
That's right.
Where are you from? Where'd you go? Where'd you study musical theater?
So I studied musical theater in Westerville, Ohio at Otterbein University. I started dancing when I was about 16 years old. I trained with this guy, Leith Nunn, who also, the person who trained him was like Patrick Swayze's mom.
Oh, wow.
Or something like that.
No, I was aware that his mom was unbelievable choreographer. Yeah, Swayze.
Okay.
Yeah.
We all know about Patrick Swayze, right? Yeah, dancing god, right?
So I heard about Swayze all the time, you know. I took tap dance growing up. I've been tapping for a long time. And then I went out to Utah to work at the Utah Shakespeare Festival for a while. I still work there regularly as a choreographer now.
Oh.
I used to be a performer there for a really long time doing school tours and stuff like that. And then I landed in Chicago in 2022, and I've been here since.
So talking about this play, is it going to be funny? What are the age appropriate, you know, how old do these kiddos have to be to go?
It's going to be funny.
Okay.
It's going to be We recently got a note to make it more PG-13.
Oh, really?
Oh,
You had
so
to
it
downgrade it to R?
Yeah.
Or did you have to upgrade it from PG?
No,
Okay.
we downgraded it
Okay.
from R.
Got
So there are some suggestive themes. There's some swearing. I would say like it's a great time for like 16 and up.
Okay.
For not quite fun for the whole family.
I don't think littles are watching Twilight anyways.
No,
You know?
maybe eventually though.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised. I've got a 9-year-old, and he has really like a magnet gone to some of these old school movies.
Like
from
Harry
my
Potter
child.
and stuff?
I would say more like, we were talking about Adam Sandler, the Adam Sandler catalog.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Older, but things like, The Sandlot
Yeah.
and other classics, like they go back to that. We just did a segment this morning, Trey, about, we interviewed one of the reporters for Block Club Chicago who was saying it's like an embarrassment of riches in the fall for the theater scene in Chicago. You said you've been here since 2022.
Yeah.
Will you talk about Chicago as a theater town? And, you said you performed out east, you've been in Utah, I believe. Talk about Chicago as a theater destination, both small theaters, larger ones.
So Chicago's really unique in the country in terms of its theater scene, because in the city itself, you have these huge theaters like the Goodman, Steppenwolf, national name recognition, and then you also got touring houses, Broadway in Chicago.
Right.
But we also have something really unique here, which is the storefront theater scene. And that's where Otherworld is. That's how TwiHard got its start, where it's these small hole-in-the-walls, like shoebox theaters that are like 50, 60 seats that put on original works year-round, basically. I can think of a few: Red Twist, Otherworld, Korn Productions in my neighborhood in North Center, and tons and tons more.
They're scattered. I will like drive by a block and I'll see a theater.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's playing there?
Yeah.
I have a question kind of
cool.
off of that. Yeah. So Chicago, big theater town. And this is just my curious brain, and maybe someone at home thought the same thing. So my family went to Frozen. It was a theater production. It was outstanding.
And Paramount.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amazing. But my question was, just as somebody who was watching, is this their full-time job, or is this just like a side gig? Like for you guys in theater, is this your full-time thing?
So there are theaters in which it can be. Paramount specifically treats their actors extremely well.
Oh.
And they get
They're
paid
well compensated.
Well compensated.
Oh, okay.
Because of the actors union, the union actors will get paid more, and usually that can parlay into making it their full-time job.
Oh.
But almost every actor I know, and almost every actor I know in the city, has a side gig. So it is, if you're getting booked back to back on shows, it is enough money for it to be your full-time job.
Oh.
But you've got to be busy.
I mean, the
You gotta be
practices,
busy.
Yeah,
I
that
can't
makes
even
sense.
imagine. They're
Yeah.
so talented.
Oh my gosh.
Like I can't
Yeah, I know.
imagine them having time to do anything else.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
These smaller productions that are at these storefront theaters that you've been talking about, how frequently do they graduate, if ever, to the bigger venues in Chicago? Does
Not
that happen?
frequently.
Not
It doesn't happen almost.
How would that,
ever.
so it almost never happens.
No.
So you could have a run of sold out TwiHard shows. Like, I mean, literally, like you get buzz in all the papers, this show is unbelievable. It won't get picked up by a bigger venue. That doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen. Mainly because Chicago has like almost like a shortage of those medium-sized venues.
So it's the jump is too big.
The jump is too big. So you're going from like 50 seats to
There's
500.
Yeah.
Who
So
makes
there
that
needs to be
decision?
some intermediate spaces.
I was just to say, like, who's pulling
Right.
what goes on at these theaters? I guess they probably have a board and stuff.
Apollo is like one of the best spaces for that sort of mid-size jump. It's honestly the only theater that I can think of that has more than 300 seats, that's somewhere between 300 and 500 in the city.
But it doesn't graduate to the Chicago Theater, it's like a few thousand seats.
Yeah.
Like,
between Chicago Theater, between like Cadillac Palace, these theaters are too big.
This is great.
Yeah.
This is so juicy. It's so fun to
Yeah, this is great. All right, so Trey, run us through again. We're out of time, but run us through where people can check out TwiHard
Yep.
and where.
You can check out TwiHard at the Apollo Theater on North Lincoln Avenue in the Uptown neighborhood. It's right by DePaul. It's also right by a Raising Cane's, so go there and then go see the show. And also you can find me on social media, but who cares about that?
No, we care about that. Do we have his handle that we can flash up on the screen?
It's a Choo Choo. Wait, oh no, that's well. Go
TwiHard the
TwiHard as
musical.
well. But
Choo Choo Trey?
Choo Choo Train.
Oh, that's good.
Treyn.
Very clever.
Choo Twain.
Very clever.
Got it.
All right, TwiHard's Trey Plutnicki, everybody,
You'll see
joining
him
us
on
here
stage.
on Chicago Now. Oh,
Mr. Edward himself. No.
Yes.
No, just kidding.
Jacob, the villain. All right, thank you so much for being here, Trey. We really appreciate it. We are going to take a quick break, but today, for Anthony Ponce, it's a national holiday.
Taco Day.
September 9th.
I'm going to get one of those.
Double-decker tacos. So taco, we'll talk about this after the break, but let me just give you a hint.
Okay.
Probably before Trey was born, there was a very popular menu at Taco Bell, which included items such as the double-decker taco and the chili cheese burrito, along with the
apple
7-layer
caramel empanada.
Taco Bell is about to bring it back for a limited time only. We're going to bask and revel in that glory when we come back after this short break, everybody. Stay with us.
Relax, Anthony, relax.
Sorry, I'm excited. Yeah, this is taking the edge off of the Bears' loss last night. And that
Has it for you?
Yes, a little bit.
All right,
A little bit. Takes a sting away.
Some comfort food.
A little comfort food.
Yeah.
We're talking about the Taco Bell menu, which is going full Y2K. What year were you born, Caitlin? Am I allowed to ask that? Is that
1990. I'm 35.
So you were 10 years old during the whole Y2K thing. That's adorable, by the way.
Yeah, we were
All
like
right,
10 years older than me, right?
I'm 1978, so I'm 12 years older than you. I'm 46.
You don't look it.
Thank you.
That's great. You're 46.
Yeah, 46.
Who would have known?
47 on November 7th.
Wow.
So
Look at
yes,
you.
I mean, so in 2000, this is my Taco Bell heyday.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
you're in your early 20s, you know what I mean?
You're going to the
college
bar,
age,
and then
you're going to the
afterwards
bar.
you're getting you Taco Bell.
Exactly. So they, rolling out today, Taco Bell fans, you are going to want to make the pilgrimage to the border, as I call it, because Taco Bell is rewinding the clock with its new Decades Y2K menu, reviving cult favorite items from the late 90s and early 2000s, starting today. I don't really have a graphic about this, but there's 5 items.
Are you salivating? I feel like I can hear it.
Did. I actually did for just a moment. Oh my!
I knew something was coming.
Oh my gosh!
I was like, what's the
Are we gonna do this on live TV?
Do you need hot sauce? Oh my God. Is this the double decker?
This is the double decker, Caitlin.
No.
Congratulations.
No, stop.
We're gonna cheers it up.
Wait. You guys, when I tell you, Anthony's been excited about this.
I've been talking about this for weeks. Adina, is this your doing, Adina? Delaney.
Delaney got it. Did you guys?
My gosh, this is exactly right. Okay, so for everyone who doesn't know, the double decker taco. I've been hyping it to Caitlin for a very long time.
I'll talk
it's
while
a
you
soft,
enjoy.
it's a soft shell taco, a layer of beans, and then that is basically what wraps
some,
up
Crispies in there.
It's like a regular hard shell taco, but it's got a soft outer.
Hot and fire. Hot and fire. Is it everything you had hoped for and more? Hopes and wishes and dreams? How does it feel? Are you still gonna have the 2 that your dad's gonna order you after work?
I told my dad to order me 2 of these.
Okay, let me talk while you enjoy that bite.
Thank you so much.
Delaney, this is, I'm really excited about this.
Caitlin, there's 4 other things.
Yeah, okay, so we got this. Cool Ranch Doritos Locos Tacos. Cool Ranch. So I'm guessing it's just a Cool Ranch crunchy
Yeah,
shell.
the Doritos Loco. The Cool Ranch, yes.
The Cool Ranch. Okay, 7-layer burrito.
Classic.
Classic?
Classic.
What are the layers? There's 7 of them. All right, let's see. There's probably beans, cheese, lettuce, tomatoes. What else do we got on that? Sour cream. That's 5. We need 2 more. What's the protein in the burrito? Beans. Is there like chicken in it? Maybe there's like chicken or beef. Yeah. And then there's something else. Maybe the tortilla. There you go. That's the 7 layers. Okay. And then we also have the chili cheese burrito and the caramel apple empanada.
That's the one you sounded
to wrap it all up. Okay, so the iconic Crunch Wrap, by the way, Crunch Wrap turns. That's
20 years old.
Turns 20 years old.
The Crunch Wrap Supreme.
Yeah, okay. So
I would eat the whole thing, but we're on live television.
You can keep eating.
No,
I got this.
I had half it. I'll have the other half during the commercial break.
Okay, so it's celebrating its 20th birthday with a new $9 Discovery Luxe Cravings box packed with a Crunch Wrap, tacos, chips with nacho cheese, and a drink. By the way, I did get the chips.
$9.
When I did go to Taco Bell, like honestly, a handful of months ago.
Caitlin, when you were 10, you could spend like $4 at Taco Bell, and you'd be
you'd get
full.
a handful of tacos.
Inflation's tough.
This reminds me, have you seen that viral clip of the girl who went on like a first date, and the date was to Taco Bell, which was fine, but he made her order 100 tacos, and then like go back to his house, they like just dumped out the tacos. It's so funny, you guys. Gotta find that clip. I don't know how you would find it. Search for that little story. It is comical. She's like, I just sat there and then something went awry and I forget what happened. Like they were just eating, it was his parents' house. His parents started
ordered 100?
tacos. On this first date, made her order 100 tacos.
I do like the idea of going to T-Bell on a first date. There's something very intriguing about that.
Yeah, but this one wasn't.
Maybe not for the girl, maybe.
Intriguing for the guy, it's a little more affordable. I don't have a problem with it, but it has to go the right way, you know. Anyways, so to complete the nostalgia trip, Taco Bell is dropping limited edition merch, including an Ed Hardy collab hat, digital watches, vintage tees, through weekly drops from September 2nd to the 16th.
Get it while it's hot. Caitlin, before we sign off, because we're out of time here, do you remember Ed Hardy? The brand?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
It was very popular.
Do you like those dudes who wore Ed? Oh, look at those logos. Caitlin, did you get some hot sauce on that?
No, I didn't have the chance. I had to try it before the camera went off. It's good.
Mouthfeel?
Yeah, it's good. You like the different textures? Is that what it is?
Very much so.
The soft and then the crunchy?
Exactly. The mouthfeel, as I like to call it, the texture. I want to give a huge thank you to Delaney, for hooking me up.
This is so
with
fun.
The double-decker taco. There's the gear. Get it while it's hot through the 16th. This segment, by the way, not brought to you by Taco Bell.
This is an
organic kind of thing because I've been talking about it so much. That's going to do it for the 10 a.m. hour of Chicago Now. We're going to enjoy these double-deckers, and we're back with another hour. Tia Ewing is in the house.
Cheers.
When we come back. Let's cheers it up. Let's cheers it up. Caitlin?
Woohoo!
Yes, indeed.
Is it really good?
Yes.
Indeed.
Fox 30.
Welcome back. It is the second hour of Chicago Now. Yeah, Anthony's all full from his double-decker. How was it? You downed it pretty quickly.
It was as good as I remember.
When was the last time you had Taco Bell?
I mean, Taco Bell probably a couple months ago, but the double-decker taco, it's been gone for years.
For a long time.
So that was why I was so excited to have it after so many years.
So like a sense of nostalgia for you. Yeah.
Took me right back to the 2000s.
What were you in the club? You know, leaving the club to go run
exactly.
Taco Bell?
I did many a late night run.
Yeah,
many a late night run, for sure.
Yeah, okay, so we, obviously, he has enjoyed that. I didn't get to enjoy it, but I will. I promised myself I'm going to go get myself one from Taco Bell. But we have a lot coming up on the show. You know, kids are back to school, and with that comes cyberbullying. I know it's something that parents don't want to think about, but we have to talk about it. And we're actually going to have the Bronstein family on. They actually had a really tragic situation in their family, and they turned their pain into purpose, and they're going to be joining us on the show to talk about that. We're also going to toast to the Elmhurst Craft Beer Fest. It is back. We're going to talk about that. And all eyes are on Congress. They're going to be talking about UFOs. I know it's something that, you know, people are like, are they real? Are they not real? But they're talking about being transparent on Capitol Hill when it comes to UFOs. So joining us now is Ron James. He is with the Mutual UFO Network. Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start off with this first question, because I think it's an obvious one. You know, there's a whole division out there. Some people believe UFOs exist. Some people don't. What's your take? Are UFOs real?
Well, I think the majority opinion now is that UFOs are real. Even the United States government admits it. MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, has been around since 1955, studying hundreds of thousands of cases of UFO reports, some very strongly substantiated. So whether or not UFOs are real is really no longer a mainstream question. Even the government admits it.
I think maybe what Tia was alluding to here is not the existence of UFOs, which we all know there's unidentified aerial phenomenon in the sky all the time, but whether they come from a different planet. Your take on that?
Well, you know, the way the government is couching this, and I spoke with Senator Kirsten Gillibrand personally about this, they don't want to say aliens from another planet. They're much more comfortable calling it non-human intelligence and speculating that it could come from a lot of different places. And that seems to be the trend in how we're seeing this. We may have nuts and bolts craft of extraterrestrials that are visiting us, but it's also leading us to the conclusion that there's a whole lot of different types of life that we might not understand that could be at play here. And that seems to be more widely acknowledged. That's why when the government issues a report, they can say things like, oh, we found no evidence of aliens. But they're not saying they found no evidence of non-human intelligence with technology capabilities engaging the human race. So the new catchphrase that catches it all is non-human intelligence.
I like that. Okay.
Can I ask one, just because I want to make sure I heard him correctly. Did you say we may have the nuts and bolts of a craft built by non-human intelligence? Is that what you said?
There have been, there's been stories that have circulated for, you know, ever since the Roswell days and even before, that the government and agencies within private industry are in possession of non-human craft and non-human technology. And the truth to that is coming out more and more. There's a scientist named Dr. Gary Nolan, who was actually tasked with studying some of the materials from this. And it's pretty much common knowledge among the insiders. It hasn't bubbled up into the mainstream public testimony at a congressional hearing. But behind closed doors, these guys in Washington, D.C. have all been informed, and most of them know that the government is in possession of non-human technology.
So that's very interesting that you say that. Congress is obviously holding this really high-profile hearing, and it's called Restoring Public Trust Through UAP Transparency and Whistleblower Protection. Do you think they kind of want to raise the veil on this? You mentioned, you know, they have some of these mechanics, I guess, in their possession. Do you think they want to raise the veil and reveal this to the public?
There are some people in Washington, D.C., and I've been in Washington, D.C. working with a lot of these people. MUFON was instrumental in some of the things that you see bubbling up to the surface. So I personally know a lot of the people that are leading the UAP, the UAP exposure through the congressional and political process, the congressmen and the senators. But yeah, they really care, but they're also up against the fact that we do have national security. We do have highly classified stuff. You can get guys that have worked on these programs to come in, but they can't talk to a congressman about what they know because the congressman probably doesn't have the clearance. So we're dealing with this whole political dance right now that we're seeing unfold in Washington. But the bottom line is there are people in D.C. that are very dedicated towards bringing as much of this knowledge as possible to the public.
Okay, so that leads to my next question. That is the significance of today's hearing in particular. Will you kind of put this in context with recent history? Because I know a lot of these phenomenon have been getting buzz. We all saw that footage from those, I think they were Navy pilots where they saw those, you know, those lights
buzzing around.
Buzzing around.
Sure.
It really like raised a lot of eyebrows. But put this today's hearing in context with kind of recent history with regard to UAPs.
Well, I think that today's hearing, as far as UFO hearings go, are not as explosive as some of the previous ones. We recently had Lou Elizondo. We've had David Grush, who actually came forward and said that he was made aware of these reverse engineering programs. The witnesses today are people that have seen something and have a certain amount of credibility. And, of course, George Knapp, who is the legendary journalist in the field. But as far as firsthand witnesses coming forth and saying, oh, I worked on a reverse engineering program at this base, this is what we had, we're not getting that from these hearings. So as much as they're going to move the ball a little bit, they're not moving the ball enough to satisfy the people that really want answers.
Why do you think that is? Because, like, I started off with a question about are UFOs real? Really, the question is about aliens, right? Because that's part of all of this. Why do you think it is that the government wouldn't want to talk about this? Is this, you know, in fear of the public response to this? Why keep it under wraps?
Well, there's several reasons for this, and first and foremost is that we believe and have a good case for the fact that this is a deception that goes back into the 30s and even really all the way back through recorded history. But in the modern day, a lot of people have done a lot of things that they do not want to be accountable for. Keeping some of this technology, some of these secrets from humanity can border on criminal. And with some of these corporations that are holding this stuff, there's all kinds of legal issues that pop up. And the other is, you know, national security. We don't want to tip our hand to what we may have or what we may have created from having possession of some of this technology. And then, you know, the other thing is how much is it going to disrupt society? If it's, hey, there's extraterrestrials, they're around us, they're not a threat, well, life goes on pretty much as normal. But if there's something dark and mysterious behind this, or there is a threat, that's not something they want to just parade out in front of people. They've got to be very, very careful how they spill this knowledge. And what we're seeing now since 2017 is that this knowledge is coming forth. It's not coming forth as fast as we want it, and it's not coming forth in the full disclosure that we all want to see, but we are getting information.
Ron, let me ask you this. You and MUFON, is that how it's pronounced? M-U-F-O-N?
Yeah, it stands for the Mutual UFO Network.
All right, so you guys have been kind of tracking civilian reports for UFOs for decades and decades. In your mind, what is the most compelling piece of tangible, non-classified evidence that all of us could have access to that you have seen in your years, which convinces you that this is a very, very real thing?
Well, we have several cases of actual physical materials. And in my film that came out in 2023, we cover some of these materials that have a track record that doesn't add up to the actual facts of their origin, and that the case for these coming from non-human technology is very strong. And then we have new materials that are coming forth that people have come into possession of that are defying testing and coming back with test results that we simply can't understand where they came from. Isotopic ratios that don't match materials made on Earth. So we have an increasing collection of physical samples that are defying testing and explanation, and these are more and more in the possession of civilians. We have some right now that we've opened up the invitation for anybody that wants to test some of this, they can.
What is the two follow-up questions there? Yeah. The movie, because I would love to check that out.
Yeah, I would love to see.
Right, and then what is the material? So both those questions.
Sure. So the movie is called Accidental Truth: UFO Revelations. It's narrated by Matthew Modine, and it is now it's gone through its cycle. So you can watch it on YouTube now for free on YouTube Movies. And the sequel to Accidental Truth is coming out in winter. It's called Accidental Truth Next. One example of materials is something called nitinol. In the Roswell history, there was supposedly this kind of material that you could wad it up and it would bounce back. And all kinds of witnesses spoke about encountering that material at the Roswell crash site. Well, it turns out that we have a material that we created called nitinol, and it does exactly that. It's a shape-shifting, memory-retaining metal alloy. You can bend it and it'll pop back. And when you trace the origins of this material, it supposedly came out of a naval weapons research laboratory in the 50s. But if you dig a little deeper, you find out that the actual original research that led to nitinol came out of a place called Battelle Memorial Institute back in the 40s. And this company, this institute, was under contract from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base to study exotic materials. And so the stories about materials, the shape-shifting materials coming out of Roswell, the fiction behind where we created our own shape-shifting materials, and the actual history of where this stuff came from points very strongly to the recovery of materials that were beyond our technology at the time.
That's so fascinating.
I'm very fascinated. I have so many questions, Ron. One question that comes to mind, it may sound a little childlike, but it's a real question. So is there a belief that these unidentified objects are being made by aliens? Are they living among us? Are they living on a planet somewhere? What's the thought process behind that part of it?
You know, it's interesting. The general consensus at this point in time is that it could be all of the above. There could be a civilization that's been living on this planet for a very long time that is way more advanced from us, underwater, inside the earth, underground. They could be connected with extraterrestrial species. And then we also have all kinds of other life forms that are popping up, like plasmoids and energetic beings and interdimensional beings. So science is struggling to even find the words to describe everything that we're seeing. But one thing is for sure, there's very little dispute anymore among people that are really paying attention. There's some kind of advanced non-human intelligence in our midst. It's been with us from the beginning of time, chronicled in religions, chronicled in legends and spiritual teachings, all the way through to now. A lot of people think that it's the same types of entities that we've been talking about since we've been able to write things down.
Let me ask you a quick follow-up. It seems like more often these days we're seeing this. Do you think that is because these objects are appearing more, or do you think that is because of technology like cell phones, for example?
I think that we're reaching an apex in the evolution of our society, and that we're really at a point where decisions we make right now are going to lead us to two different radical outcomes. If we go down one path, it's almost certain self-destruction. If we can get our act together and start behaving differently in the way we treat each other, we could have a potential utopian future. And so we are at this turning point where these decisions are pivotal. And so the increase in activity in encounters with non-human intelligence, a lot of people think, is part of a wake-up call for humanity, giving us the opportunity to really reflect, because it all ties in. We are at a very pivotal time, and we're making some bad decisions. And if we continue down this path, we're not going to have a good outcome. And I think that any non-human intelligence, wherever they're from, that has any interest in us or the value of our planet is going to start turning up the heat a little bit on humanity to get its act together.
What is your take on, if they are here among us, their incentive?
They're ready to get out of here.
Is it about Earth? Yeah.
They're like, I'm over these people.
These are some crazy people. We're out of like leaving a party. What is your theory in terms of what they'd even be interested in Earth for? Is it the resources here? Is it the internet?
That's pretty funny. Well, look, if you are a intergalactic realtor, Earth's a pretty prime piece of real estate.
Okay.
You know, it's in the sweet zone. It's got life. It's got a huge abundance of DNA and interesting things that can happen. There's a lot of reasons why, you know, extraterrestrials would be interested in Earth, but there's also the whole aspect of the spiritual aspect of it. And so you have to look at the broad picture, and you have to compare it with some of the things that we've been taught through time. And so what I think that we're dealing with kind of an as above, so below. There's probably more than one non-human intelligence that's engaging us, and they probably all have slightly different agendas, and some could have polar opposite agendas. So we can't just put them in a box and say this is who they are and this is what they want. It's way more complicated than that.
That crossroads you just mentioned about, hey, we are at a crossroads right now, a fork in the road, whether we're going to self-destruct or if we're going to strive towards some utopian future. Let's bring it back to the hearings, these whistleblowers. How important in the very, very short term is transparency in your mind, with regard to this crossroads that you mentioned?
Well, I honestly believe that if humanity had the information about our place in the universe and what kinds of beings we're surrounded by and what kind of galactic citizens we are, it would enable each individual to make decisions based on a broader set of facts. Because we're never going to progress as a species or as a civilization forward if the individual people that are making these decisions aren't making them on an individual basis. So denying humanity the knowledge that we're not alone in the universe and denying us the knowledge that some of these groups have it's really making it very difficult for us to evolve as individual beings. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It makes sense, what you're saying. What's your take on Anunnaki?
Okay, in our history, there seems to be a few very, very strong cases for evidence of tampering with our biological progression. And the story about the Anunnaki, that was Zachariah Sitchin went back and he translated the Sumerian texts, which were the earliest known form of writing in this iteration of civilization. And according to him, it tells a story about a whole alien species that came down here, genetically re-engineered the existing primates and made us to basically work for them and do work on the planet. And then at some point, they left us to our own devices, so to speak. That's a hotly debated subject, whether it's true or not. The evidence is pretty strong that something like that could have happened, whether it's that specific thing or not. People are still arguing that point.
Yeah.
I gotta go down a wormhole on that one online because I hadn't heard of Anunnaki before.
Yeah, I could keep talking with you. Yeah. I have so many questions.
I mean, it's fun to consider these possibilities. Ron, it's a fascinating discussion. What do you think is next on the horizon in this whole realm?
Yeah.
I think that there's going to be some sort of acknowledgement that they found some sort of life off planet. It might be a microbe on Mars, doesn't matter what it is, but there's going to be an acknowledgement of off-planet life. And there's going to be a continued slow drip that we get through Washington, D.C. But what we really have to start looking at is things that we used to think were totally crazy and made no sense. Things like ESP, extrasensory perception, things like people... alien abductees, for example, that are saying they've had these things happen to them. In order to make sense of everything that we're seeing, we're going to have to start listening to some of these accounts with fresh ears. And we're going to have to start revising what we know about science, what we know about the nature of reality, what we know about time and space, because everything we think we know is slowly unwinding into the need for a whole new definition of who and what we are.
Yeah, well, it's a lot that we could keep talking about. Ron James with the Mutual UFO Network. We appreciate you joining us. This is so interesting. Yeah, we definitely appreciate it.
TF, there's one thing I've learned.
Thank you for having me on. Anytime you need to comment about this topic, I'm available.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back sometime.
It was out of this world, conversation.
Hey, listen. I was going to say, one thing I've learned being a journalist all these years, you always got to keep an open mind.
Yeah, it's
always. Let's be honest about all the things we don't know.
Yeah, I know.
Before we laugh too hard, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I do.
Hey,
I know exactly what you're saying. Okay, and so we're going to have a whole lot more coming up right here on Chicago Now, including a really serious topic about cyberbullying and a family who actually lived through that tragedy that's making a difference. We'll have that right after this break.
Leaf good.
Welcome back to Chicago Now. We're going to kind of slow down the show, talk about something really important that I think all parents need to listen to, and that's the topic of cyberbullying. School is back in session, and this is a real situation that kids may encounter. And joining us now, we have Rose and Rob Bronstein. They've been with us before. They created Buckets Over Bullying, really out of their pain, turning their pain into purpose. We want to thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's talk about, how you came to even develop this nonprofit.
Well, back in January of 2022, we lost our son Nate to suicide after he was viciously cyberbullied by certain basketball players and students at the Latin School of Chicago. At the time of his death, we were not aware that he had been cyberbullied. We did not find out until 2 weeks after we had lost him that he had experienced cyberbullying. The Latin School of Chicago had received a report from Nate. He had reported that he had been cyberbullied and gave the evidence, very clear evidence of it and who was behind it. They minimized his report, and they deliberately chose not to notify us after he reported.
I remember speaking with you, I believe it was this past year, and you were on an information quest from the school itself. Get us updated on that. Has the Latin School been more forthcoming with any of the information that you all have been seeking?
Well, we can't comment because we're currently in litigation.
Got it.
Okay. One thing that I noticed talking to you, and I've spoken with, because you're a victim, right? And I've spoken with victims' families over the years, and this is raw. This is real emotion. This is something that you'll never forget. You can't replace Nate. What has life been like for you? I know you're fighting for other people to not have to go through this, but you still have to deal with the raw emotion at the same time.
Well, I mean, that's exactly what you said, which is, absolutely, it's very real, and we deal with it every day, but no question, working all the time to educate other families, to make sure that this happens ideally never again, but you know, really anything we can do to protect other families, to let other parents know about what was our blind spot, is what, you know, sort of gives you a purpose to move on. And we're you know, look, what we were dealt a terrible hand, but we also feel fortunate that, and we're happy to talk about some of what we're doing, but we feel fortunate that we have been able to get so much traction because it's such an issue, it's such a problem.
Yeah.
I've got a 9-year-old boy, I've got a 4-year-old boy. The 9-year-old I mean, they're just getting the phase where he's got a like a smart watch to keep track of his location, to share text messages. We have signed this wait till 8th pledge.
Great.
So he's not getting a cell phone until after he graduates from 8th grade. That is gaining traction at his elementary school. You guys have something called Screenshot It, Block It, and Report It. This issue, technology, the kinds of social dynamics I'm seeing with my own boys in their grade, some of the text messages that I've seen come through on his phone, I'm already like very paranoid. And the thing is, Maggie and I, my wife and I, we feel like we're improvising like every day. Just improvising, like, oh my gosh, this came in. How do we handle it with their parents? Do we tell the school? So I want to get into Screenshot It, Block It, Report It, and then also to Rob's point, you described it as a blind spot. Fill in these blind spots, because I feel like every single day I'm dealing with a new blind spot.
So, as I've spent the past few years as an advocate for social media safety and reform, and holding schools accountable, social media platforms accountable, negligent parents need to be held accountable. I just keep seeing it's like rinse and repeat. The cyberbullying does not stop. There has been no disruption in the status quo to get this to stop. And after losing our son, we said, okay, we got to get out there and stop this. 3 years later, like you said, it has not stopped at all. It has not changed. And so in my head, I'm like, we actually need to start to talk about how do we mobilize as parents when either our own child is being victimized by cyberbullying, or we hear or know of someone else's child being victimized by cyberbullying. Because right now, like you said, most parents say, I'm staying out of it, I don't want to get involved. Or a child says, well, I don't want to say anything because then my friends are going to call me a snitch, or someone's going to retaliate against me, or then I'm going to get cyberbullied. All these natural human thoughts and emotions come through, so everyone gets paralyzed and does nothing. And when you do nothing, this is why suicide is the second leading cause of death among children ages 10 to 19 in the United States. When did you ever hear of that? When we were kids, when did you ever hear of 9 and 10-year-olds dying by suicide after being cyberbullied? So what we're trying to do is to try to actually start to get parents to actually think about action steps. Like you said, what can I do, or what should I do, and how do I talk to my kids about this? Now, it's not foolproof, but it's like almost the same idea of when we were young, we've all been conditioned to call 911 when you see someone gets hit by a car, you see someone fall down on a sidewalk. If your first instinct is like, should I call 911? I need to call 911, we need help, right? This is kind of that idea, but in the virtual world. But we need to get, because our children are the ones online, we need to get them to the point to empower them to feel safe and have the confidence to speak up and to understand that I'm not going to get bullied myself. I'm actually getting somebody out of trouble, and I'm actually helping somebody. Because what kids tend to think is, if I say something, I'm going to get bullied or snitches, right? Or I'm going to get someone else in trouble. But we need to talk to them and say, you're actually helping get someone out of trouble. So Screenshot It, Block It, Report It. We need to talk to our kids about when you see someone being cyberbullied, even if you think that someone's being funny or it's a joke, you need to screenshot it. Most of the time, kids are being cyberbullied on platforms with the disappearing message feature, specifically Snapchat. Because on Snapchat, kids feel more emboldened to bully because, oh, well, the message will disappear in 24 hours. There's no evidence. I can deny it. I can deflect. I can say it wasn't me. There's no evidence. That's what happened to our child. Our child was bullied over Snapchat, and same thing. Message disappears, so why not do it? But also to be clear, in screenshotting it, it's just to get the evidence to share with a parent or a trusted adult or a guardian. And in severe cases, if it needs to be taken to a school or needs to be taken to the police, at least the evidence is there. But we need to also tell our kids that it's not meant to be reposted or reshared with anybody else. It is just to be kept within your family unit or within the people that you trust to help get to the proper point in time to start to get the ball rolling to get the right help.
So if you screenshot a bullying text message, it's not to put that person on public blast. Here, this is what so-and-so said to me. Look at how mean he is. This is for the parents and perhaps the school authorities so that they can get it involved and necessary.
Exactly.
And that is, to clarify, that is your equivalent of calling 911. That would be
in my mind. Yes.
Okay, that's the parallel.
It needs to start somewhere, right? Because in many cases, kids like to justify cyberbullying. Well, I was just kidding, or I was just trying to be funny, or I didn't mean it. You put it down. You did it for a reason. And so how else, and sometimes we call 911 and it's not really a true emergency, but we always err on the side of caution, right? And we need to tell our children that too. Like, even though you're questioning whether it's cyberbullying, you're better off screenshotting it and saying, Mom, Dad, Grandma, Grandpa, like, this is what's happening to this child right now, or this is what's happening to me. Can you please help me? What do I do?
Let me ask you this. Let me hop in here, because what I think of when you say that, say some of what you said, is that some of these schools, you know, when your kid goes to a new school, you sign like a non-bullying pledge and all of this. A lot of school districts have that. Does that go far enough? Because schools have it and kids are still being cyberbullied.
They don't follow it. And this is another reason why we've decided to take this route. At this point, from what I've seen over the past year, all these years, schools are not all schools, but in all of these tragic cases, it is rinse and repeat. Schools are not protecting our children from bullying and cyberbullying. They will have it in their handbook, they will have it in their policies, but when push comes to shove, they turn a blind eye, they deflect, they deny, and they choose to vilify the victim, blame the parent, and take no responsibility. So in order to disrupt the status quo, as parents, we need to mobilize and say, it is on us to protect our own children, and if we don't protect our own children, who is? We can't rely on the schools anymore.
Because they're in CYA mode.
Exactly.
You know, putting this stuff in their handbook so that they can say down the road, well, here, these are the proactive, these are the proactive measures we took.
But then they don't. But then they don't do anything. Right, so we can't rely on them right now. We need to start to hold them accountable for that.
The screenshot initiative here, is there a way, I mean, would you, okay, so that is, I'm just trying to like put myself into the mind of a child if I'm going to have the presence of mind to make that screenshot. Is there monitoring software as well that you guys might recommend that would take a little bit of the variables out of this? Because, you know, as I look at this through the lens of a dad, I'm like, gosh, in the heat of the moment, if this comes through, am I going to get that screenshot? And then with the disappearing stuff, it just makes it so time sensitive. What is your message there?
Well, there's an amazing company out there called Bark Technologies. Their website is actually bark.us, and they do offer third-party monitoring software that does alert parents when their child is receiving dangerous content, anything from cyberbullying to suicidal ideation. When teens are being sextorted, that's a huge issue right now. Those types of messages can be caught. The way it works is that as a parent, you download the software, your child has to have the software, and then alerts come to you when there's dangerous content coming in.
Bark.us. Go ahead, Rob.
If you think about antivirus software in your computer, it constantly needs to be updated because there's new malware and viruses out there. As parents, we're not going to be up to speed on the latest lingo and slang.
Right.
So, for example, just the terminology that young people might use when they're being solicited to buy drugs online, like you would, it changes constantly.
It's like symbols, right?
They're little
exactly. It is.
Tia, did you see what was the show that debuted in the UK?
I think do
you know what I'm talking about?
Adolescence.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you see Adolescence yet?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. That actually, you know, I know that's based on a couple of cases in the UK, but it really tells the story. Parents out there should see this, if not just
watch it.
it's a cautionary tale. But like you guys were saying, so the series depicts detectives that are trying to zero in on the cyberbullying that's going on in a middle school there, and it's all symbols.
Yeah.
If you looked at these scrolls, you wouldn't even know
what's
it's
going
cyberbullying. Like things like a blue heart means something different than a green heart in this context, or a a hand palm thing in this. You would never know. The kids had to explain it to the detective.
No idea.
And it changes rapidly, and again, so a third-party company like Bark, and there are others, but Bark is one that we're familiar with and have a lot of confidence in. But a company like that can invest in constantly updating, to look for it. And to go back a second to talking about schools, even the most well-meaning, well-intentioned schools, again, just like parents probably can't keep up with the speed at which not only the symbols, but as you know, the students, the young people move from one platform to another, right? And so, so for example, a lot of parents might say, well, I'm going to monitor my child's Instagram account. Well, they don't even understand that they're doing 2 or 3 other platforms you've never even heard of.
Right.
Let's talk about, because you have a big event coming up that will be in Times Square. Let's talk about that and really the meaning and intention behind that event.
Sure. So,
Sure. So we try to partner with organizations. We'll be partnering with the AAU this Saturday in Times Square. They have an event every year called the Times Square Takeover. They set up courts, basketball courts in Times Square, and they run tournaments all day long. So we feel very fortunate to have the opportunity to work with the AAU. Basketball was our son's greatest joy. He loved basketball, so we try to reach athletes through basketball. And we work with Tristan Jass, who's a social media influencer. Also, he is known for his basketball trick shots on YouTube and Instagram, and our son was a big fan of his. Tristan is one of our founding members of our organization, and we're so grateful to him. He uses his platform and his voice as a megaphone to reach exactly who we need to speak to. We need to speak to children ages as young as 9 all the way to 18 about the dangers of cyberbullying. So he will be there at the Times Square Takeover. He'll be speaking there to the athletes before they start the game. We'll messaging around. We'll be talking about screenshot it, block it, and report it. Hopefully we'll be able to reach parents as well. Talk about, like, this is what we need to do to mobilize now today to really start to disrupt the dangers of how dangerous cyberbullying is, rather than just step back and do nothing.
Thank you so much. Now, like I described, this whole, as a dad here, it feels like an improvisation every single day, and it feels like I'm a hockey goalie, like the pucks are getting past me, all this stuff. For folks out there who are watching today, how can they find out more about Buckets over bullying and get some resources to take some of this guesswork away, like today?
Just visit our website at bucketsoverbullying.org. We have all the steps for screenshotting, blocking, and report it, and what you need to do to support each of those tasks. And if parents can start to think about those 3 steps themselves and talk to their children about it as well, I really truly believe that we can start to shift, make a little bit of change in the way that both our children and parents react or don't react to cyberbullying, because like you said, we all feel paralyzed and nothing's changing. And then just quickly, just in terms of blocking it, we really need to then ask our children, when they see cyberbullying coming through, they need to block the bully. If your child is being cyberbullied, the very first thing your child needs to do is block the cyberbully off their account, so that those harmful messages don't keep coming at them, because the more it comes in, the more mental and emotional harm it does. And then you also need to report it to the platform. Platforms have a duty to take it down. However, that's not always the case. So again, it's going back to the family unit, going back to the parent, saying, I need help, mom, dad, aunt, uncle, grandparent, whoever you are, please help. I'm being victimized, or my friend or someone at school is being victimized today. I'm seeing it on Instagram. We've got to do something. We've got to stop this.
I really appreciate you both coming here and really turning your pain into purpose. That's a really hard thing, to do and to keep going. despite the loss of your son. So we appreciate you both. We really do.
Rose and Rob Bronstein, thank you both so much for being on the program. Really appreciate it. And thank you for all you are doing for all of us out there.
Parents, you're helping us. Yeah.
Thank you for helping us get the message.
Yeah, absolutely. We will post this and spread it far and wide. Thank you very much.
We'll be right back.
Fox Low.
Welcome back to Chicago Now. We are talking vaccines, and we have a doctor that is going to be joining us to talk more about this. Dr. McMullah, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Thank you so much for being with us. How are you today?
Doing well. How about you?
I'm doing well. You know, we talk a lot about these vaccines, and some people have been vaccinated for different things as children, and then these various viruses come back up again. Is that enough protection to be vaccinated when you're a child, for example, for like measles?
Yeah, so measles is one of those things that we're lucky because, yeah, it doesn't take like the flu shot where every year you got to get something because the measles vaccine is changing. So childhood vaccines usually protect for life, right? And adults who receive sort of 2 documented doses of that MMR vaccine, that measles vaccine, are generally also considered immune. So some of them last your lifetime, and some of them need an update every year because that virus is changing.
So essentially, is it that the vaccine wears off, or there's different strains of this virus that kind of mutates and changes?
Yeah, it's much more about the mutation, right? When something changes and the antibodies that were created based on, vaccine A now needs to be different because where those antibodies attack the virus, when the virus changes, the antibodies may not be as effective. And we saw all that with COVID, right? And that's why we rely on updates to certain vaccines when the virus itself is changing.
One thing that, we keep hearing about coming back around, chickenpox. I remember having chickenpox when I was a child. It wasn't part of the routine childhood schedule. For many adults, it isn't. Should people never that have had the shot or the illness be vaccinated now?
Yeah, so I mean, shingles, which is kind of the what you get after you've had that virus, there's vaccines to protect against shingles, right? And that's recommended for eligible adults. And so that's kind of the recombinant zoster virus. It's also called Shingrix. But yes, that's something that we should be updated on.
Which boosters out there are critical for adults to be thinking about now? Because, for example, I feel like shingles was something we hadn't heard about in a very long time. And now it's making its rounds again. And after you've had it, you can essentially have like a flare up again, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yep, because this is a virus that, viruses kind of go into dormancy and then they pop up. And oddly, that's, one thing that a lot of people find out is sometimes in a source of stress, right? Like you get a cold sore or something. So in the same way, shingles is something that can pop up, and that immunity to that, the antibodies, can be updated with vaccination. And so there are things that will continue to be challenging, right? Like the flu. That's something that in any given year, the virus itself mutates, and so we get an updated flu shot, and that's something that everybody should get, right? Adults should get a flu vaccine every flu season, and that's something that's kind of ramping up right now. Here we are, and about to be in the beautiful fall of the Midwest, right? I'm in Michigan, you guys are in Chicago. September and October, it's a beautiful time, but it's also when you get a little bit more snot going, and that's where these seasonal vaccines, particularly for things like the flu, are pretty darn important.
I automatically think of, it seems like my house is all free and clear from any illnesses until school time. When the kids go back to school, then everybody's bringing home something. What can parents do to make sure their kids are protected in terms of vaccines and make sure they are protected at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, so since there's so many different things that pop up, even now we have a little bit of a COVID spike. You've got the flu that's coming around, RSV, and because it's a complicated answer, right? Which age group should get what medical conditions warrant doing this versus that, the age, again, is kind of the main fundamental thing to your question. These are conversations that patients should have with their doctors, that families should have with their doctors. And then they can understand, okay, this is why I should get this, and this is why my 5-year-old awesome first day in kindergarten is prone to this. And that's just, it's not something that I would just rely on the internet to say, this is what we need and this is what we don't need. It's amazing the conversations that patients have with their doctors to get that advice.
So, Dr. McMullen, I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, because for some of these vaccines, as an adult, you had them as a kid, you haven't seen the doctor for that vaccine ever again. Are you saying that in some cases you may need to get that vaccine again to kind of have more immunity?
Yeah, the first thing is there's a lot of people that don't remember, right? And it's not like if you're 70 years old that there was some digital option to sort of track what vaccine you got when you were a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old, right? I had that same issue. My mom's a retired pediatrician, and she would vaccinate me after hours, and for a long time she forgot to write it down. And so when I needed a card, she's trying to figure out, what did I vaccinate my kid for? I don't remember, right? And the same thing can happen if you're 70. And so that's where there's science to show that if you don't remember, it's reasonable to get an update, right? And so if you don't have documentation of your MMR vaccine, right, it's something, I don't remember if I got that or not, that's something that can be updated. And so yes, there are absolutely reasons that somebody that's a senior, right, somebody that's an adult in general, can get updated, and it's not a risk to do that if there's any doubt. But of course, a conversation with their doctor is the best way to understand that.
What do you say to parents? Because, there are parents out there that have vaccine hesitancy when it comes to their children. There's a lot of different things that swirl out there about what vaccines can potentially do to children that are developing. What do you say to a parent that may be hesitant, even though some of these viruses are coming up and popping up in schools?
Yes, it reminds me of when we were doing COVID vaccination early on here in Flint. We had thousands of people in the parking lots of the malls and the airports that were enthusiastic about getting their vaccinations. And then there was that whole several-month period where people just weren't sure, right? The people that you're describing right now, that sort of have heard one thing and then they're hearing another thing, and they need to have a conversation about what it is that their doctor would recommend. And that's exactly the best place for them to go, because when you rely on social media to get a medical opinion, you can have an extremely popular person on social media that's very charismatic, but isn't really science-based in their recommendations. And what does that do? That plants a seed of doubt in the minds of people that are like, I'm not sure what to do here. And so for those seeds, when they get planted, that's something that it could be a weed that's going to grow in their mind. And the way to kill that weed, make an appointment with your doctor, have that conversation about, this is what I heard, what do you think? And the doctor's opinion is going to be based on the science, right? We spend tens of thousands of hours studying this stuff, practicing this stuff, and that's exactly where the conversation should happen.
You know, doctor, I didn't know you were in Flint. I used to live and work in Flint. We're both in the Midwest, obviously. Right now, around our part, we start to see, you know, flu pop up. The seasonal cold pops up. What is pervasive right now that we're kind of seeing across the board? We've also seen some cases of COVID, you know, coming back around that people aren't talking about because we're not tracking the numbers, you know, as closely as we used to. What are you seeing right now being prevalent in terms of viruses?
Yeah, so absolutely COVID, as you mentioned, I mean, it's having a little bit of an uptick, and that's concerning. But the other things are like RSV, flu. This is exactly when we're going to start seeing that, right? And September is a great time to get your flu shot. But RSV is one that filled up our hospital. You probably remember our children's hospital here in Flint, Michigan. And last year, they had a pretty tight, I mean, they were nervous about how many kids were coming in with RSV. And so this is exactly the time of year that happened before, and it can easily happen again. In fact, we should count on it happening again. And that's why the vaccination is the best way to keep your kid healthy and keep them in school instead of this hospital.
Doctor, my last question for you. I hear people say all the time, well, really to ward your kids off from some of this stuff, give them vitamins. Feed them a whole lot of different various vitamins. Does that work? Is that enough? Or you do need to rely on some of these vaccines?
No, it's definitely not enough. I mean, it's a good thing, right? And I would say that nutrition, right, a good, healthy diet is critical for so many things. But it's not going to be enough to stop the RSV from knocking your lungs big time. You know what I mean? It keeps you healthy in other ways, but you need immunity. You need antibodies. And vitamins aren't antibodies. Right? And that's why both are important, but for different reasons.
I need to tell my mother that because I think that's, you know, kind of the old school way of thinking, hey, vitamins, vitamins, vitamins. Doctor, we appreciate you every time you join the show. We appreciate your advice and everything you had to say. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you. And if you have a homecoming to Flint, let me know. We'll look around and we'll give you an update on what downtown is like now.
I know it's a totally different downtown than what it used to be. That's for sure. All right. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
All right, well, stick with us right here on Chicago Now. Coming up, we're going to be talking about beer. Yes, beer. I get to drink a little on this show. We'll be right back.
It doesn't.
Welcome back to Chicago Now. This is where we kind of get loose in the show, not because we're drinking, but because we're talking about something really fun. This is Dave Oberg with the Elmhurst History Museum, the executive director. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, T. I appreciate being here.
Yeah, this is really exciting because we're talking about 10 years that this has been going on, the Elmhurst Craft Beer Fest, which is happening this weekend, Saturday, the 13th from 2 to 6. We got to talk about this. 10 years strong.
Yes.
How have you pulled this off for 10 years?
So we've got a wonderful nonprofit group, the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation, that came up with this idea back in 2015, and we had about 450 people the first time, and all of this was designed to raise money for the Elmhurst History Museum for our programs and exhibits. The last 4 years we've broken more than 1,000 attendees now. 54 brewers coming this year. That's the most we've ever had, and this is funded 30 exhibits, more than 200 programs. It's allowed us to pilot all kinds of great new outreach programs for schools. This thing is just a roaring success, and we owe a lot to the volunteers who put this together.
Oh, you got volunteers. That's even better because you get to keep a lot of that money for the programming, which is awesome. We're seeing a lot of people smiling because you can't go without smiling when you're drinking, right?
It's a great day. We've got a 1.5 acre campus. It's beautiful, a lot of old shady trees there, and it's just a great day. It's kind of a farewell to summer and welcome to fall event. It's a lot of fun.
I love that. So let's talk about it. You said 54 different craft beers will be present.
Brewers, actually. It's more than 100.
Wow, so more than 100 different options to drink.
Yep, beers, seltzers, ciders, and meads, so you're going to find something you like for sure.
Out of those, how many are local? Because I know you brought a lot of local guys with you today.
Well, we've got, I mean, these three are right in our backyard. Phase 3 is right here in Elmhurst. 93 Octane just opened in Elmhurst, and then right down the road in Lombard, we have as well our friends down the road here have offered us a couple of different beers here at Noon Whistle. But we've got folks from all over the greater Chicagoland area and even some international arrivals as well.
What is the attraction, you think? Because I noticed, like, it seems like this craft beer brewing situation has really exploded in our state in particular.
Yeah, I was going to say, actually, Illinois is kind of the mecca now of the craft brewing industry. A lot of folks took a turn at the wheel at Goose Island back in the day, learned how to do their own thing, and opened a lot of their own places, and it has exploded. And I think it's just the idea of focusing on something that's artisanal, that's locally made, that tastes good. Germans send their brewers here to learn how to make beer now. That's a huge about face from my childhood and my young adulthood as well. But you're going to find great beers at this event.
Anything else happening? Any entertainment? Any...
Oh yeah, we've got the Songmates doing some great Motown music.
Okay.
We have as well a band called Petty Cash that does everything from rock and roll and rockabilly to country. We've got Golden Boy Barbecue. You can buy your barbecue right on site, or you can walk to one of the more than 20 restaurants in immediate walking distance from the museum after or before the fest to enjoy. So it's going to be a great day all the way around.
They're giving us time. We're coming up on time here. Let me ask you this. Where can people get tickets, and can you crack one of these bad boys open?
Okay, you like those ciders, I heard.
I
So
do.
we're going to try this Lowell's cider right here. Or this is a seltzer, but it's kind of apple and cinnamon right here.
My kind of guy.
And cheers to Pints, our event sponsor for all 10 years now as well.
You need to pour you up some.
Alrighty, I can
Where
clink
can
glasses
people get
on that
tickets,
one.
and how much are tickets?
ElmhurstCraftBeerFest.com. It's $55 for tickets, $20 for designated drivers, and you can get an early entry ticket for $70, and that gets you in at 1 o'clock instead of 2, so you can beat the crowd.
I'm going to be there with you, Dave, because this is amazing. All right, thank you so much for being here. Make sure you go get your tickets. Have a great day.
Now you.
Live from Chicago, this is Fox 32 News at Noon.
Next at noon, the ICE crackdown in Chicago. We'll tell you the latest on new action and more on arrests that are being made in our city.
Also, the man accused of plotting to kill President Donald Trump is back in court for the second day of jury selection.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Sylvia Perez.
And I'm Brian Jackson. ICE agents are intensifying some of their efforts here in Chicago.
They made arrests over the weekend and are active today. Fox 32's Joni Lum has the latest.
ICE agents bring detainees here to the Broadview Processing Center as they make arrests. They were out again today, taking down what they call threats to public safety. A Fox News crew rode with ICE as they patrolled the streets in Chicago, while masked employees reported to the processing center. On Sunday, ICE agents made arrests in 3 locations along Archer Avenue, in Archer Heights and Brighton Park. They parked a marked vehicle outside the Cook County Jail, where they say authorities are not cooperating with federal agents due to sanctuary laws. An ICE official said sanctuary status will not stop their mission, nicknamed Operation Midway Blitz.
Even when we have pushback from Democrat leadership, that's not going to stop us. We're going to continue to go after the worst of the worst.
One of the arrests happened outside Curie High School. Neighbors say federal agents picked up a well-known flower vendor on Archer Avenue, causing anxiety for people traveling to work or school.
We see the hatred that lies under each and every tactic that they use. The inhumanity, the cruelty, we know what that means. We know what it stands for, but we fight back.
ICE is joined by Homeland Security and U.S. Customs Border Protection. There are vehicles seen all over northern Illinois. They say that criminals flock to Chicago and Illinois because of the sanctuary.